Hi, and welcome to Decoding AQ, helping you to learn the tools, mindsets, and actions to thrive in an ever-changing world. Hi, and welcome to our next edition of Decoding AQ. I've got with me Ashely Bugge, and she's a best-selling author, speaker, and something that excited me was an explorer. And you went from, as you described, living your dream life in Hawaii to unexpectedly becoming a military widow. And then, at a young age at 34. And one of the things I think that attracted me to reach out in the beginning, Ashely, was just some of your heartfelt stories that you were sharing online. Really resonated in how you turned this very tragic experience into something that was enlightening for you and your family and maybe many others. So thank you for joining us.
No, thanks for having me, Ross. I'm excited to talk to you.
So yeah, just give me a little bit more and the listeners a bit about that background and perhaps some of your journey, just to start us off.
Yeah. My husband, Brian, and I were married in 2013. We had dated when I was 20 and he was 21. Honestly, just dated a summer. And then he was kind of like head first, head over heels, like, let's get married. I'm going to join the military. We'll get married. We'll have kids. We'll travel the world. We'll live at the coast and we'll just live this dream life. And while it was like, I think you're the person for me, it was also like, I'm 20 years old. Like, no way, like, get out of here. I don't want to be married at 20 years old. Like, I don't even know what I want for dinner tonight. I'm not ready to get married or have kids or any of that. So we went our separate ways for 8 years and then lived completely separate lives. We still had mutual friends. So we never talked, but kind of kept tabs on one another, I guess you could say. And then eventually just found our way back to one another through a phone call. And from that very first phone call in January 2013, it was just, you're still the exact same person that I knew I loved back then. And we're older, we're wiser, this is the time. This is the right person. Now it's the right time. And so we were married just 10 months after that. We were married at the Oregon coast here in the States. And from that moment on, we just lived this incredibly beautiful life together. We traveled the world together. We basically did everything that he said we were gonna do when we were
The
20 years
bucket
old.
list.
Yeah, and now here we are, almost 30. Each of us, had done a lot of traveling prior to that. We'd both learned to sail. We had both done a lot of exploration and had really cool opportunities presented to us that we took advantage of. But then when we came together, we were just unstoppable. Like, any idea that he had or that I had, there was never, and we both had full-time careers. We both had all these things going on, but there was never a moment of, you probably shouldn't do that because, or we can't do that because, or there was never like, that's not going to work. It was, that's what you want to do. Okay, let's figure out a way to make that work together.
Yeah.
He was in the military, so he was deployed often. He had to travel a lot for work. I worked full time. I was in school full time. But we still just knew, like, this is our one life, our
Yeah.
one chance to do this. And so I think that really was what just really built us up as this couple.
Yeah.
We just had the confidence to tackle anything.
What a gift to
Yeah.
find that moment for both of you to lean in to life
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
And the in all the people I speak to, the relevance and context, those are just choices, right? To
Hmm.
choose to behave like that, to think like that, to do it, and to be in
Yeah.
flow with one another, a great opportunity and great experience.
Yeah. And it just instills this confidence in you of
Mhm.
just, there's nothing that I can't do. Like, if I want to do this, you're right. All I have to do is just go do it, find a way to do it. And then to have a partner who felt the exact same way, and not only felt the same way, but pushed you and encouraged you and found ways to help you establish that or make it happen. It was just, it was just incredible. And then we brought kids into the mix through all of that.
Yep.
We had our daughter in 2014. So actually, personal story, when we got married on a Sunday in 2013, Brian deployed Friday, so 5 days later, on a 6-month submarine tour. So he was under the ocean
Wow.
for 6 months. And that was on a Friday. On Monday, so 3 days after he left and we said our goodbye for the next 6 months, I found out I was pregnant with our daughter Isabel. So
Wow.
he left on
That talk
this.
about adaptability, in terms of going from this, moments of, huge emotional, physical, everything journey of two people going through life to then
Mhm.
being separated at various moments.
Yeah,
That, oh, how do I figure out what I do now and how I function
yeah,
and who and what do I talk to and
yeah,
all of those things. And then that news, a life-changing event for sure.
yeah. And then yeah, exactly. It was a lot. And then knowing I was going to go through this pregnancy without my husband
Mhm.
there, without being even able to talk to him, we'd go a full month without even an email to each other.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
I was really kind of in it on my own with that. And then he came home and here I am 6 months pregnant. And yeah, it was just, I don't know, with him by my side, there literally just was nothing that I didn't feel like I was capable of. Doesn't mean it wasn't hard. It doesn't
Yep.
mean I wish things were different or that our circumstances were, easier or the grass is always greener on the other side. Sometimes I wish like
I've got
this.
got a question, Ashley. At that time, if you can cast your mind back to, you said goodbye 5 days after being newlyweds
Yeah.
for 6 months, that you go, okay, I'm getting my head around that, and then find out you're pregnant. What was your life like in terms of your thinking? Because what I want to bring this as of context is we all set something up of what we think our future is going to be like, and then stuff changes. We
Yeah.
might expect it. Oh, you married somebody in the military, so you expect them to go away.
Yeah.
But then when it happens, and it sort of, often these things come at the same time as other parts that then change the entire feeling. Did
Hmm.
you put things on pause, hunker in and hunker down for your man to return, for Brian to come back? Did you change what you're doing? What was it like in that kind of 6 month period of how you were thinking and what you were doing from the life you had
Yeah.
before?
That's a really good question. So for me, there's not, I mean, up until we get to this part of the story, there's not really much that brings me down. There's not much that I know I can't get through. There's not much that I'm willing to like let deter me. I'm super stubborn, super hard-headed. So, and I'm very goal oriented. So once I get something in my head, it's like it doesn't matter how I get there. I'm okay. I'm very adaptable and flexible. And if things are thrown at me while I'm on my way to that goal, okay, as long as I know I'm still working towards that goal. So, yeah, I'm sure things shifted a little bit, but no, I was still out sailing, kayaking, traveling, hanging out with friends. Like you can grow a baby and do all of those things at
Yeah.
the same time. In my
And
head, this is my one life. I only get this set amount of time. So I want to do everything that I want to do during that time.
to be full, I I think it's, one of those things where, as you described, and in a lot of conversations I've had, the power of goals and the flexibility of how is a
Yeah.
potent mix. And looking at progress, not what you haven't done in each of
Yeah.
those pieces, is a key, element to be additive, not corrosive to confidence.
Yeah.
And I guess having those little moments where some things go right, some things don't, but looking at the progress along the way. So fast forward us a little bit further in the story. He comes home, find 6 months pregnant, and what
Yeah.
goes on for there for you?
Yeah, so we had our daughter. We continued sailing. We owned a sailboat and we loved spending time on the water together. So we would bring now our child sailing. We had this idea, which I'm sure a lot of parents have before they have kids, but we said and we stuck to it, that we weren't going to adapt to our baby's world. Instead, we were going to have our baby adapt to our world. And we didn't want to stop being who we were, and we didn't want to stop doing the things that we love, including learning new things and exploration and all the things that have been really important to us as individuals. We didn't want to stop that and now just be this unit of a family and now just go to the park on the weekends or just go, do home improvement projects. We certainly did those too, but in our world, it was, okay, now how do we adapt to now bring our baby with us to travel the world and to sail across oceans and to do these things that are important to us? And so, yeah, that was kind of how we started our journey of parenthood. It was just from the very beginning, okay, we're still us, but now we've got a baby in tow, and maybe we, have to settle down for the hour and a half of the day where she takes a nap. But after that, we're going to get back out there and we're going to go for a hike, or we're going to go, do whatever.
I think that's a really key aspect that all of us face in terms of to adapt our surroundings to us or us to our surroundings.
Yeah.
And then the complexities when that is more than a single unit. When
Yeah.
it's then, a couple and a family, and in work, a team and an organization. It's this constant sort of poetic dance between, are we wanting everyone to adapt to us or us to them, to that new process or this opportunity? And the clarity of making those decisions allow you to live very purposefully.
Yeah.
And I remember a great quote that someone gave me, that it's the yeses and nos are absolutely fine, but it's the maybes that kill you. And okay, we've got kids, but we're going to be us, and they're going to come along for the ride of what that is. It reminds me, have you ever seen the documentary called Given?
No.
It's the first movie I watched, or mini film documentary thing on a new telly I bought, and it was a ultra high def on Netflix bit of content, and it's narrated by, I think he's maybe 5 or 6 years old. His name is called Given, and they're a couple that travel around the world, and their family, of young kids just follow them. I think one was an ex-pro surfer, the other one was a filmmaker, and it's just beautifully poetic and done. And it's narrated from the child's recollections of all of these experiences of meeting shamans or going to this island or all these things. So it reminded me a little bit of that. And when we come to the latter bits of, your film and movie pieces that are starting to happen, it was something I wanted to ask you about. But
awesome. I just wrote it down. I'm going to go watch that one.
Given, it's beautiful. It's beautifully shot. It's quite poetic, and it just has a nice twist that it's just narrated by a young child.
Awesome.
And that's nice. I liked that in those pieces. So can carry on, because I can't wait for people to go through the next bits.
Number, the smallest prime and the only even prime.
My Alexa just started up.
Is that your Alexa? Just love it.
Okay, so yeah, we had our daughter. We at this point, my husband was working on a submarine based in Hawaii. We didn't have to move there yet. We owned our home in Washington State. We had our sailboat in Washington State. We were pretty set up in Washington State. So instead, he was traveling to Hawaii pretty much 2 weeks of every month to get ready for this next deployment. So often my daughter and I would fly over to Hawaii and spend weekends there. If we wanted to see him, we had to make it happen. We had to find ways to make it happen. So that included a lot of trips across the ocean with me and a 3-month-old, 4-month-old, 5-month-old, which we didn't mind. We loved Hawaii anyways. And then so one of the trips to Hawaii, when Brian and I first started dating and I was over at his house, he had this piece of paper stuck to his refrigerator and it said, learn to scuba dive, $99, like fun, adventure, water, excitement, like all these like, like all these things that's us. We need to do that.
Written for you.
And Brian, on the fridge, I was like, oh, what's this? We should do this. He's like, I know, I've been wanting to learn to scuba dive forever. And I was, I've always loved the water, the ocean. I'm like a fish myself. And I was like, let's do it. Then we got pregnant. You can't dive while you're pregnant. So one of these trips to Hawaii, after we had Isabel, we had some friends that lived there, and we dropped our daughter Isabel off with them. And Brian was like, I've got a surprise date for you. And we drove down to this marina, parked the car, walked out, and then there it is, this big truck. It wasn't the same flyer, but it said, learn to scuba dive, discover scuba dive. And we walked up to it, and I was like, are we diving? And we'd waited like 2 years at this point to learn to dive. And he had surprised me with this discover scuba dive. So we did our very first scuba dive together in Hawaii there. Did all of our drills, popped up out of the ocean for the first time after breathing on our regulators. And we're just like the biggest heart eyes, like life-changing moment, knowing you could breathe underwater and getting to see all of the sea life in this place that we just loved. And it was just quite literally life-changing. And a few months later, we flew to Mexico, and we got certified to scuba dive in Mexico so that we could dive wherever we wanted, whenever we wanted. And from that moment on, we became scuba divers.
Do you have a view or a reflection on what drives your curiosity and adventure? The explorer inside you, is it from your parents? Is it just, it snowballed? You were, this junkie of experiences that just led, well, I've done that one, so I need to do another one. I've seen this place, I need to go to another place. And it just happenstance? Or was it goal oriented? Right, there's this many cities, this many countries, I want to get them all, let's get them done. How did it work for you in that curiosity?
Yeah. With the term FOMO, fear of missing out, I have a serious case of FOMO. Okay. There is nothing that I don't want to see or experience or do. I really have this thing inside of me that says life is going to end at some point. And if I die before I see these things that I know exist or know happen, and I haven't seen them with my own eyes, what am I going to do if I haven't smelled that smell that people have talked about, or if I haven't seen the inside of that cave that I know I've seen a picture of and I want to see that? There's just something inside of me. And I feel like people that have explorers' hearts, you just feel it, and it's just in you, it bubbles up.
Collector of experiences.
And then once you do it, you can't not do it. Like once you've traveled the world or traveled even to a country, it's just inside of you. Like you've done it, you can do it. Like you just now want to see the rest of the world.
And I think it feeds a lot of human nature, of this balance between two desires, for certainty and uncertainty. Why we do things a second time, watch a movie for a second time, play a sport for a second time, third time, fourth time, because there's elements of those two things, of certainty and uncertainty. Mm-hmm. And from our kind of research and what we're trying to do of adaptability to make sure people don't get left behind. So when there's an abundance of opportunity or there's a change required, people have one job, that job shifts or changes. They have one task, they have relationships, they have teams, companies that they work with, and it all moves. If we're living life, it moves. And a lot what you've talked about, I can just feel it and see it, this energy and excitement when these experiences fill you with heart eyes.
Yeah.
But life isn't always filled with experiences that are heart eye ones.
Right.
They can be incredibly sad and, debilitating, paralyzing experiences. And they're not necessarily the ones that we go searching for, but they show up in our lives for various bits. And I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about it, but I think it's a very relevant for everyone to hear perhaps those moments for you when you found out Brian wasn't going to be part of your next chapter, and how you managed to deal with that. Because I feel very fortunate that the people around me that I've lost, the closeness has always been that little bit further away. It's been my wife's father or
Yeah.
various bits rather than my number two, or my number one,
Yeah.
in my life. So tell me a little bit about that experience, if we may, and thank you for giving me the opportunity and permission to do that when we first
Yeah, of
met, to
course.
ask you.
Yeah. So, yeah, this is where the story shifts. Fair warning. So 2017, we now had a son as well. So now we've got Isabel and Hudson. Their ages 1 and 3. Brian gets promoted in the military. He's now he's made it to the rank of ensign, which means he has done so well for himself in the Navy that they have recognized him and said, of everybody in the Navy, more or less, we're going to choose 6 people Navy-wide for this one specific designator, and we're going to promote you across the line. So instead of being an enlisted rank, you're now going to be an officer. And that happens so rarely. And I only say that so like what a big, big deal this was for him and for his career and for us as a family. This is something people in the military, like this is high up there of things that you
This is
want to do.
a big event.
Yes. So August 2017, he made that promotion. Actually, I'm going to backtrack just a little bit. He found out he was going to get that promotion in February. We knew when he was going to get it. We had just bought this new sailboat, well, an old sailboat, but new to us sailboat. And it was like, okay, well, now we know we're going to move. We know we're going to move to Hawaii. We know we're going to want our sailboat in Hawaii. How are we going to get our sailboat to Hawaii? Well, from our, I don't know, craziness or this whole life of like, yeah, do it. It became that Brian was going to sail our sailboat to Hawaii. So in July 6, 2017, him and 3 of our friends set off from Gig Harbor, Washington, and spent 3 weeks sailing this 36-foot yellow sailboat across the ocean to Hawaii. And we all flew over, my kids and I flew over to meet him there, welcome the boat coming into the harbor, which was just
amazing experience.
Yes, the highlight of his life. Like,
yep.
The smile that was on his face when he got off that boat, just honestly of happiness that he was now on land, happiness of accomplishing it, knowing all of the trials and tribulations that he had to go through out there for 3 weeks in open ocean. He was a changed man. Like, this was not the same Brian that left Gig Harbor. And it was the most incredible thing to witness and to watch and to know that he had done that. We flew home 2 days later, August 1st. He got promoted to an officer. He flew off to his officer training school, and I moved to Hawaii with the 2 kids, packed up all of our household stuff, got everything, the cars, the dog, everything shipped off, myself and 2 kids across the ocean to Hawaii. And then Brian met us there in September. And so from September 2017 on, we were just living our dream life. We had this playground as our backyard. We had 2 beautiful kids, our dog. We were just honestly like, we could not believe that
feeling
this was
really
our life.
blessed.
Yes. Like every day we'd watch these airplanes fly over our house and just be like, suckers, you have to fly home. We get to live here. Like, it was honest. This is years ago now, and I still just get this like feeling inside of me that's just like, I can't believe that we got to live that life. We sailed, we dived, we just were outside every day. We'd get off work, we still had to work, but we'd get off work and we'd take the kids to the beach and play in the ocean in Hawaii, in paradise. And it was just so beautiful. And then December, I found out we were pregnant with our 3rd child. And we had 2 miscarriages that year. So finding out on Christmas, we found out Christmas Day, was really exciting, but also really scary at the same time, because we were now like worried about another miscarriage. But deep within, I kind of felt like this one was going to stick. And I don't know why, but I knew that this one, we were going to have our child from it. And anyway, so the next few months, we just spent hanging out on the island, living this dream life as a family with our 2 kids, ages 1 and 3. I was pregnant. Brian started this dive training on a closed circuit rebreather. It was a course he had wanted to start since we moved to the island. It's a very complex piece of equipment. It's not recreational scuba diving equipment. But he started the training for that. And then he was in it for a little while. And then May 20th, 2018, he woke up to go to class for the day. This was his last training dive of this specific class. My 2 kids, I'm almost 6 months pregnant at this point. My 2 kids are at home with me, and we're sitting on the couch getting ready for the day. And my phone rings, and it's an unknown number. And, the temptation was there to not answer it, of course, because I'm thinking it's a sales call. But because of Brian's military service, anytime your spouse is in potential danger as a military spouse and an unknown number calls you, just intrinsically, what if something happened to my spouse? I should probably answer this. So I answered it, expecting to hear who's your insurance carrier. And instead it's a panicked man on the other end of the phone saying, "This is the manager of the dive shop. Your husband was in an accident. Where are you? Are your kids with you? Where are you? We're coming to get you." And, I'm stunned. I'm not expecting that phone call. I had just kissed Brian goodbye an hour and a half before that morning. I'd watched him drive away in our truck. And I'm saying, what? No, this is Ashely. Brian's in a dive class. No. And he said, "No, this is the dive shop manager. We're coming to get you. Where are you? There was an accident." And I think I gave him my address. I must have said I was at home, because a few minutes later, here is a strange car pulling in my driveway, and I'm loading my kids into this car, my big pregnant belly. I'm getting into the car. I'm making a phone call to my one friend on the island saying, "There was an accident. I need you to meet me at the hospital. I don't know what's happened. I don't know if Brian's alive. I don't know what I'm walking into." And, fast forward through the sad details, I guess, but I find out about an hour later that he didn't make it, and that he had died in a scuba diving accident, basically in our backyard, in the same waters that he and I had dived in together for the very first time, the same waters that we surfaced from that dive, and just were all smiles and laughing. And that's where he had taken his last breath. And my 1 and 3-year-old in the car, waiting for me to come back out. They don't know what's happening. They're in the car with a stranger. I'm crumpled on the hallway floor of this hospital, screaming, my big belly in front of me. Just, it was a nightmare. It was completely a nightmare.
And, for everyone listening, I'm sure, like me, when you were telling me the story before and again, this is something that, as humans, our grief, all of those bits, we're not trained, we're not equipped to deal with that. These things just happen. And like many things, we have to figure it out as we go along in those. And you can read a book, you can hear a story, you can watch a movie, but it never prepares us for those moments.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the fundamentals for me that excites me about adaptability, is that if we can't predict what we're going to be facing, good or bad, I want to empower people to have the right tools in their kit bag to survive that as well as possible. From having friends around you, the team support, to having mini goals. I remember you talking to me before about, when someone's struggling with something, just getting out of bed is an accomplishment.
Yeah.
And these things. And perhaps, people who might be facing and struggling through something right now, it might not be as tragic as what you've just taken us through the journey of, but it could still be their worst day they've had.
Yeah.
What kind of advice would you give somebody who is perhaps struggling with something right now, where, many are locked down, trapped, cut off from social interactions, not seeing loved ones, all sorts of
Yeah.
bits? What advice, having lived those moments, huge highs to an incredible low, what would you give to help people through that?
Yeah, I think first of all, it's super important what you just said, to acknowledge that it doesn't matter what the worst day of your life is. What matters is that you've experienced it and that you know that type of pain and sadness and grief and confusion and frustration. Those are emotions that we can all relate to. And that's the same dog we moved to Hawaii and back with me. It doesn't matter, what the actual catalyst was. It's that you've been there. And I think for anyone who has had those kinds of emotions, the biggest piece of advice I could give would be to find an outlet, find something that drives you, that gives you purpose, that gives you this idea of, I'm working towards something. And you're right, day one, maybe it's getting out of bed, maybe it's drinking a glass of water or feeding yourself or trying to get outside and go for a walk. In your case, hopefully it's not -3 degrees, but getting outside and doing something. And then hopefully as you meet these minuscule goals, which sound ridiculous when you're in a good headspace, like, how hard can it be to get out of bed? When you're there, though, it is debilitating. It is that hard to get out of bed because you just want to live in that grief and in that sadness. But embrace it, recognize it's okay to feel that way, as long as you're working towards getting out of it. And, for me, it became writing. I'd have all of this sadness and devastation inside of me. And I know if I keep it inside of me, it's going to crush me. It's going to consume me. And I'm not going to be around tomorrow. And so it became, I'm just going to start writing, and I'm just going to try to get this out of me and put it on paper and publish it and let the world read it. So I know it's there. And if I need to come back to it, I can, and I can live in that same mindset and those same thoughts. But I also feel like once I've written it and I've shared it, I can move on to that next step and I can move forward a little bit. And I feel like that's pretty equilateral. You can put that into anything. It could be you want to start training for a marathon. Okay, get outside and walk around your block. That's step one. Maybe tomorrow you jog, a quarter of a mile and you walk the rest. And you just start taking these little steps, building towards something. But if you give yourself a goal, it doesn't matter what it is. It could be hiking a mountain. It could be, painting something. It doesn't need to take a lot of money or a lot of time, but giving yourself a goal, and not just that, but the confidence and the will to take the steps to meet that goal is what got me through it. And I think it's what I'm teaching my kids to do. It's pretty resound across the board. You're able to do that if you give yourself the will to do it.
I think those things that you've just shared, of find an outlet, whatever that looks like, a pen and paper or keyboard and screen, a friend, whatever it may be, to have that dialogue, to be able to have some form of connection.
Yeah.
Because it's severed from what was to what will be, whatever that was,
Yeah.
of person, job, thought, manifestation of beliefs, of those things. And then to incrementally make steps and know that each step is progress.
Yeah.
And that might be hard if you're judging and referencing on your before, when you were talking about all of this just abundant energy of experience and excitement, to judge a day of getting out of bed with the day that, he got off the boat after sailing for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
That's not the sort of judgment that's perhaps super helpful in that moment. It's just, I was in bed, now I'm not in bed.
Yeah.
That's the kind of reflection, and that's easier said than done.
Mm-hmm.
And I admire you to get to the point where now, your adventurous spirit is, been emerging, blossoming, and being gifted to your children. on exploring, on going on adventures with them. And I think the skills that are required for humans to navigate this future we have of a speeding up of everything, this balance to be able to pause and reflect, to just take a moment of calm and then get on a roller coaster and ride it and scream with joy and fear, is what life is. And I'm really interested in terms of your children now, and the having been through those things as a human being. What are the skills and sort of lessons and areas that you're focusing on with them? I'd be really curious to know.
Yeah, these kids, I mean, all kids these days, honestly, like this is a crazy, crazy time for kids ages, well, any kids really, but older than like 2 or 3 who have kind of lived a life of quote unquote normal, and now everything around them has shifted, and not just everything around them, but the way that their parents or people around them are viewing things and talking about things. It's just bonkers. So thankfully or unthankfully, my kids have been thrust into a kind of a life of chaos leading up to this pandemic. Izzy was 3, Hudson was 1 when their dad died. And obviously that kind of set things off of, we don't know what tomorrow's going to look like anymore. And we don't know what it's going to feel like or what we're going to be talking about or the emotions that are going to come with us. We moved off the island. We moved again. Eventually we picked up travel again, and
You went on a European tour, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, we did. We went on a 2-month trip through Europe. We traveled for 2 months through 8 countries of Europe, just to try to find, I mean, for a multitude of reasons, but the main reason was to try to find some of that confidence back in myself. I wanted to prove to myself that I could simultaneously hold this place of grief and sadness and loss of Brian with finding that piece of me that was inside of me before, with that adventurous spirit and that need to tackle things and not being fearful. And yeah, it just became this that's going to be my outlet.
You beautifully framed there this paradoxical thinking, a mental flexibility to hold 2 opposing thoughts in the mind at the same time and not end up in, a padded cell or a straitjacket. To hold this sense of grief, of fear, of all of those bits, and go and do the very same thing again, and travel and explore and even go scuba diving again.
Yeah.
And there was a very touching story you were sharing with me about the anniversary and scuba diving and things, which to me sums up an incredible resilience that's not about bouncing back, it's about bouncing forward.
Yeah.
And to go to a place of betterment, to use it as fuel, and to hold this sort of mental flexibility of that negative and experience and still exploring curiosity that is you, that is who you are, to live in the same person, and not need medication. I mean, these things of we are so powerful as human beings of what our capabilities of, and we're limited only by our ambition. And you've inspired me a lot through a lot of your writings, so thank you for sharing those. And perhaps just to wrap up for everybody who might have their teams, who might consider even their family, of what they're going through when they're in unnatural situations like we're facing. We're trying to homeschool, the environment's changed, our job, is it secure, unsecure? How do we face each day and move forward and be best versions of that day? And if the best version was getting out of bed, was smiling, was making the breakfast for the kids, or giving a task to a new member of team, that by definition is a best day. So just share with me the little story about the anniversary, the bravery, and I guess just the endless experience, curiosity that you have as a person around what you're doing, going back scuba diving and
Yeah.
bits
You can
to
call
just
it
share that.
stupidity. It's okay. Like it's a fine line of bravery
No.
versus
Yeah.
um yeah. Well, first I want to touch real quick on the kid question, because
Yes.
I think honestly my biggest learning lesson through all of this is we all say how resilient and adaptable kids are, and it's absolutely true, but you have to foster that environment for them. You can't just expect them to be okay. You have to create experiences and education and a comfortable, confident environment for them to feel safe, to be resilient and to be adaptive and to grow knowing that they can fall back to. And my kids, they really are tough as nails. They are so curious and they're so smart and funny and powerful, but they also have off days. And I have to remember that just like me, they're experiencing all these crazy emotions and it's based on what they're hearing. And I can guide them as much as I can. And this is the same for anybody in a leadership role, employees, staff, anybody. You can guide them and you can tell them what to do or how to do it. But unless you're really giving them this environment of feeling safe to do that, it's not going to work. And they're going to hear what you say, but they're going to watch how other people are doing it or what's going on around them. And that's going to be their guidance. So as a mom, I've really just watched how I'm guiding them and how I'm leading these kids. And I'm doing it by, am I raising them to be the person that I am? And if I'm telling them one thing and doing something else, it's not going to happen.
It's
So
that modeling, isn't it? Right.
yeah,
It is that safety, that fostering the environment in which we can thrive, to try
yeah,
new things, to do new things. If you're creating it but not living it yourself,
yeah.
that kids are probably the most observant
Mhm.
to see. So in order to create a psychologically safe or a safe environment for team to try new things, is you have to bloody try new things too.
Yeah.
That's part of the criteria of a safe environment,
Yeah.
and often forgotten, isn't it, that, oh, I've done all of that but I don't need to do it. And
Yeah.
so I think that is an absolute aspect that comes, it sounds like it's natural to you because it's who you are. For others, it might not be so natural
Yeah.
to do all of those things rather than fall into what I've done before and see their safety as repeat, as known, as proven.
Yeah.
To lead by unknown and to do new, it takes bigger bravery for those individuals to do that, and that then ripples out. So I'm glad you shared that piece as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think it's like we talked about earlier, I'm so goal oriented. And by design, I would think I'd be more of a type A personality of, I have a goal. I know I'm going to reach that goal. And then I have to take these very specific steps to reach that. But instead, I'm super like, "Meh, I might go here. I might go here. Like, what's going to happen today? What are you going to throw at me today? That's going to shift me. Maybe that puts me way over here. And now my goal has shifted a little bit, but that goal is still the same. And so I think raising kids and managing teams is very similar to that. Like
Yeah,
you all have this goal in mind. You just have to be adaptive of how you're going to reach that goal.
that's beautiful.
Yeah.
That is nice. And just I want you to share that story, because for me it gave me confidence of how far you've come through your process.
Yeah.
And I think others will see from the high to the tragedy to then the story. I want to give them the opportunity to know where
Yeah.
you're at, and
Yeah.
that they can also by nature of that give them hope as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So when Brian died, pretty soon after that, I was pretty adamant that even though scuba diving had been a part of our lives for years now, and like one of the best part of our lives, it was just this thing that we just loved and felt like was a part of us, like inside of us. We knew and felt like we were scuba divers. But I now had two, almost three kids to take care of, and I knew the only way to have their story not be both of my parents died in scuba diving accidents was to not dive. And I was very set of, I can never dive again. Like that would be absolutely insane. Obviously anything can go wrong at any time. It's scary. It would be irresponsible of me to dive. What if an accident happened? You know, I was scared. Obviously I was very scared. I was very
Paralyzing.
yeah, debilitating. Like I the thought of putting on scuba gear just, I was okay. I had washed my hands and I was like, I know what the ocean looks like. I'm done. I can't do it. Turns out I could do it. A year later, on the 1 year anniversary, I had Brian's ashes turned into, it's called a living reef memorial. And they take human cremains and mix them with organic material. And you place it on the ocean floor and it becomes part of the local ecosystem. And when I found out about this, I was like, there's literally nothing more that Brian would want than something like this. And so I had one created from his ashes, had it flown to Hawaii. And the plan was the person that had bought our sailboat that he had sailed across the ocean with, I was thankfully still friends with him. And I was going to be going out on that sailboat with my kids and Brian's family. And we were going to watch Brian's dive team lower this memorial onto the ocean floor, the exact same place Brian and I had dived for the very first time at. And just days before, it was just kind of like eating inside of me. Like, I can't imagine knowing that reef is down there and not seeing it with my eyes. I can't imagine, like, that's Brian. Like, that is quite literally the love of my life. And I can't imagine not having my hands on it and getting to say goodbye. And it's just his dive team. And I'm up on the ocean surface. This is the one opportunity. And I know if I don't take it, I'm going to regret it. And for me, the idea of regret is so much worse than the fear of what could happen. And so just days before, I just kind of got it in my head that it would be, for me, more irresponsible to not be there and to watch my kids, have my kids watch me just live in this state of fear of missing out on something than to actually do it. And I knew who I'd be diving with. I knew it was his dive team. I knew nobody's going to let anything happen to me on that dive. And so I called one of the guys I was coordinating the trip with, and I said, Eric, I think I'm going to do the dive. And he said, what? And I said, I can't not do it. I have to be a part of this. And he said, okay, let's make it happen. And I said, I think I need to let everyone know in case they want to back out. This is already a really emotional dive. And now, you know, I'm adding this extra element and it could create a lot of uneasiness with the dive team. And I understand that, but I can't not do it. And so he's like, Ash, okay, let's do it. And so I called everyone and everyone was like, oh my God, girl, you're insane. You're amazing. Like, I don't think I could do that. Yes. Like this is amazing. This is absolutely amazing. And so a few days later, we flew to Hawaii, and on the 1 year anniversary, my family, my kids all got on our boat, Stay Gold, and traveled out to the dive site. And I got all my dive gear on, and we dove the wreck that he died on. And then we traveled over, and with his dive team, I got to help place his reef that's still there. And it was, I'm just so grateful that I pushed through that fear and that pain and put myself in a position that I knew was going to be sad, and I knew it was going to hurt, and I knew it was going to be so scary, but I also knew that I would regret not doing it. And so yeah, I placed his reef, and now there's this reef there that anytime I'm in Hawaii, I dive with his team or with friends, and we go visit the reef, and other divers who are diving in the area that know where it is can go visit it. And yeah.
It really gives me, you know, emotional chills to hear stories like that. And part of me, we all try in our own minds to understand, to rationalize, to empathize, to do all of these sorts of complex things. And for me, all I had in my head was that was Brian's doing. In my head was that he knew who you were and what you needed in order to unleash who you are, and to have something cut off from you, to not dive again. I think he made this happen in that way to get you into that opportunity to overcome it. That's my own little mind going in little, funny circles and spins. And I think for everyone, when we face the most challenging times that you just described there, that you knew going into it was going to be a whole plethora that isn't just you. It affects the dive team, the family, all of the choices that we make. But those choices made with deliberate intent give the opportunity for great things to come out for you and others. And so I am very confident of your surroundings, your family, your children will become something because of that very moment as well. And I know I could talk for a long time with you, but I know we mentioned the series of This Is Us, in terms of there's such emotional journeys that you can only watch one or two at a time. And what I liked in that is these little moments in our lives that as parents, we don't know the effect we've had on our children. When we're leaders, the moments we don't know what effect we've had on people around us. When we are somebody in a team that we might not lead, but we're a component of how we affect others. And so if we go through life writing the types of histories we want, the event is the event. The history we write and the way we view it is ours, and we can choose what we do with that. And I'm just amazed at the way in which you have written the chapters and pages of your journey so far. And I look forward to what else you gift the world in your experiences. And they're not insignificant. They really are huge ripples and waves that I'm proud to bring to some of our listeners as well. And I wish you and your family an amazing continued exploratory journey of, every serendipitous and excitement moment, as well as every goal that you set being ticked. So thank you, Ashely.
That's so sweet. Thank you.
Do you have the level of adaptability to survive and thrive the rapid changes ahead? Has your resilience got more comeback than a yo-yo? Do you have the ability to unlearn in order to reskill, upskill and break through? Find out today and uncover your adaptability profile and score, your AQ. Visit aqai.io to gain your personalized report across 15 scientifically validated dimensions of adaptability. For a limited time, enter code PODCAST65 for a complimentary AQ-Me assessment. AQAI, transforming the way people, teams and organizations navigate change. Thank you for listening to this episode of Decoding AQ. Please make sure you subscribe on your favorite podcast directory, and we'd love to hear your feedback. Please do leave a review and be sure to tune in next time for more insights from our amazing guests.